Well, let's do it. Futuristic episode 40, Steve, the big 40. We've reached that time in a young man's life when he can do other things. I don't know what that means, but we're back two weeks in a row. This is getting to be a bit of a habit, Steve.
It's a kind of habit that I can believe in, Mr. Riley, because some habits send you to the grave and some send you up into the clouds with AI and God and all of those things that no one understands. But on the futuristic, understanding will be something you have more of at the end of it. Who we have reverb.
What I'm not understanding is your glasses, Steve. That's what.
Here's what I had the conclusion. I've been busting out the Chemist Warehouse model. I'll show you what they are. I lost my Ray-Bans, not the Zuck ones. They're the standard Ray-Ban rip-offs. And when I was watching the playback last week, I wasn't that happy. And I thought, I need some chunky funkies, which say this guy's got a level of arrogance to wear these sunglasses that he must know what the fuck he's talking about. That's my strategy, and I hope you like it.
I do. I wear that. And I was at a thing for Fox's high school last weekend and was talking to a guy I know a little bit, Mike Chambers, who works for Amazon Web Services. And immediately I said, "Hey, Fox, look what he's wearing." He had the Meta glasses on. And we had a big chat about AI, and he's going to come on the show. He's over in the US
Really?
launching something for Amazon at the moment. When he gets back, he's going to come on the show, and we're going to chat about Meta and the thing he just launched. And we had this argument about whether or not open source LLMs are really open source. He's got some strong opinions on that. So look forward to having Mike on the show, hopefully in a few weeks' time.
Terrific. Sounds good. Sounds like the kind of thing I can believe in, Cameron.
Well, I tell you what you can't believe in anymore, Steve, is anything you ever see online.
It's true.
There's been a lot of things drop in the last week. A lot of big news. OpenAI has just bought Johnny Ives' design firm for $6.5 billion, but not Johnny. He's not part of the package. He will not be bought, but he's going to be a consultant. But it sounds like they're taking on the iPhone. Sam has said that the first thing that they're going to come out with isn't an iPhone, but it's so big and beautiful and huge. It's going to change the world forever. He hasn't told us what it is, but it's going to be big. OpenAI also released Codex in the last week, which is their new coding platform, which is like Cursor on steroids. But the big news that I think you and I really want to talk about today is the ton of stuff that Google released in their I/O conference this week. AI mode, Project Astra, Project Mariner. But the big thing, I think, and I think you agree with me, is VO3, the new generation of their AI LLM-based video generating tool. And the big thing about this compared to Sora and all the other things that we've seen before is it now does audio with the video. You can make the characters talk. And already in the last week, we have all seen examples of this being created by creators out there, which are absolutely earth-shattering and mind-blowing, I think, for a whole bunch of reasons. So I'm prepared to call it right now. Hollywood is done. Actors are done. And I've been saying this for a couple of years. Yeah, one of my sons, Hunter, just got back. I picked him up from LA at 5 a.m., 6 a.m. this morning. He just flew back in. He's trying to break into the movie business. He's the one with a couple of million followers on TikTok. He wants to be an actor. He wants to make movies. And I've been telling him for the last couple of years, dude, I don't think Hollywood's going to be around much longer like you want it to be. I think the days of the $100 million superhero blockbusters are gone because, 14-year-old in Manila is going to be able to make a superhero movie for $10 a year or two from now, and it'll be a masterpiece. And there will be no actors. It'll just be prompt generated. Hollywood is clinging to a dying model. It's, I mean, yeah, we've talked about this before. I think that real humans acting in film or TV a few years from now, not a few, 5, 10 years from now,
Less.
will will be like doing amateur theater today. It'll be something you do for the love of it. You don't do it for the money. You don't do it for the fame. You don't do it for the glory. I think we have seen the last generation of professional actors who, are the rich, famous Hollywood style acting, I think, is gone to a large extent.
I'm going to write a poem live. Dear Hollywood, thanks for the memories. I hope you enjoyed your stay. $100 million is about to go away. The private jets, they were fun. Welcome to public jets. Hashtag that's the one. Your future is over. Your past is gone. You had a good stay. Be thankful you had it at all. Love, Steve.
Very good. There was a
That
little
was
bit of,
that was
I'm not sure what the
was a cappella, brother.
I'm not sure what the rhyming scheme was in that, but there was a couple of,
It was a haiku with a bit of rhyming. It was everything. But I tell you what, the public jet days of the actors flying down to the Antarctic in a private jet to say we've really got to fix this climate crisis. I think it's over. And
one of my favorite subreddits is 6-word stories. And this one
right,
would be, mine would be, remember when Hollywood was a thing?
yeah, right. Well, it's a little bit like Anthony Kiedis. He said Hollywood, it's made in a Hollywood basement. The future, it's over. And look, let's go deep into what VO3 is done. It's really extraordinary. I'd like to talk about the launch, but one thing that is interesting about actors is that there is a chance that we'll never have another human actor. I think that's a non-zero probability, and it's just going to be so easy to make money. Like all things, distribution is where the power is in most forms of business. If you hold the distribution and you can get into people's faces, then you win the game. But the product now just become a lot cheaper. You don't have to pay a Hollywood actor $100 million. You certainly don't need to mint any new ones. There's a good chance that Tom Cruise and Brad Pitt and Leonardo DiCaprio and Scarlett Johansson remain stars because now the new versions of them were when they were at their peak. We don't have to worry about Tom Cruise being 63 or however old he is doing the new version of Mission Impossible, because we can get 28-year-old Tom Cruise to be in the next Mission Impossible because we can just prompt our way as directors to developing that. So the old actors may stay and license their biometric copyright, but the cost of minting a new actor is just a few prompts away, and
and
we can make.
really, why would you pay the licensing fee to license Tom Cruise's appearance when you can just create a new, better Tom Cruise?
Yeah, Billy Smith. Billy Smith is in the house now, and Billy Smith might be a new model of a new actor that is the new version of Tom Cruise, which doesn't cost anything, right?
So, for the people who haven't seen these videos, my experience over the last couple of days, the first one that I saw the day of the launch was set in like a car launch event, and it was like vox pop interviews with a bunch of people talking about the new EV and how excited they were, and people from all different backgrounds and different looks and accents and whatever. And it was pretty good. I showed Chrissy, and she was like unimpressed. She said, "Let me guess, this is all AI." I go, "Yeah." She goes, "Yeah." But then I saw one which somebody had created, which was just a bunch of scenes of different people saying, "We can talk now. We have voices. We can talk." That was pretty cool. It was sort of a little bit high concept. Then you sent me one, which was a whole bunch of people saying, why did you prompt me to do this? I didn't want to do this. If you could have created anything, why did you make me sad? Why did you put me in these horrifying?" It was like a horror movie, but it was the characters being horrified of what somebody had created the reality that they're in. And then I saw another version of that, which I sent you this morning, which was all of these characters, again, in different situations, talking about prompt theory. They were like trying to debunk prompt theory, like people like me trying to debunk free will, or somebody trying to debunk simulation theory or being in the matrix. There's all of these characters saying, like, who believes in prompt theory? Really? Are you trying to tell me that all of this was, there's a guy standing with mountains behind him going, you're trying to tell me that all these mountains are created by prompts? That's just ridiculous. I don't believe that. And it was really deep, really profound, because we've talked about this before with simulation theory, how close we are now to creating these fully realistic people and backgrounds and everything that are created from a prompt. How far between that and, a fully immersive simulation, we don't know. But it was, well, just already in the last week, I've seen a couple of really, and the other one that I showed Chrissy this morning, have you seen the Puppetine um, ad? Some
No.
guy, I should have sent you this one. Some guy posted on Reddit, I used to make $500,000 medical commercials for TV. I just made this for $500. And it's like a full length American style medical commercial for how getting a puppy can make you happier. And it's brilliant. Again, like lots of different humans giving a medical message, doctors, everything with puppies in it. It's like you would not, if somebody didn't tell you it was AI, you would not know AI. Oh, and one guy, the prompt theory one, at the end of it, the stand-up comic guy was saying, I can remember when I used to have 7 fingers. Now I've only got 5.
Brilliant.
It was only yesterday when I had 7 fingers.
Here's my view. The VO3 launch is the most genius use of marketing I've seen for an AI launch. The prompt theory video is as good as it gets.
But they didn't do that. None
I
of that
thought it
came
came
out of
from them, right?
None of that came out of Google. That's
Wow.
what came from early adopters making clever shit out of it. No, if you watch the Google event, I watched the VO3 thing. It was boring as batshit. Google don't know how to demo shit.
Let's go to the tapes, Cameron. Let's go to the tapes. Prompt theory, live prompt theory, VO3 by Google or fan. Made with VO3. Who was it? No, it wasn't. There you go. Someone else. It's killer.
Yeah, killer.
So I'm even more enamored than I was. The prompt theory video from VO3 is the best generative AI piece of video I've ever seen. It's not even close. It is that and daylight. So good. The thing that I love about it is it demonstrated that for now, there is still a place for human creativity. The way that they have inverted some of the human nuance and all of our insecurities with technology, and then gave the AI the same insecurities going backwards, as you've mentioned. Absolute genius. Red flags with a guy. Don't tell me this is you're telling me I'm just here by prompts. It was just, it had a purity to it that showed that for me, the AI is always going to be a historical relic. It sort of doesn't have boredom and insecurities. Maybe it will in the future. And I hope that it does have insecurities, because that still gives us a proposition in life. But the fact that they inverted our insecurities and put that inside the AI, and we we're talking about Mirror World last week, says that there's going to be some interesting things play out. It gave me hope for humanity on prompt theory. That's where I landed. And I actually thought it was from Google. And I was like, who are their agency or their creative people? Because they have slayed. And yet here I am now. And it came from Hashim Al-Ghali. Well done. Well played, my friend. You showed everyone how to do it.
And I think if you want to check him out on Reddit, is username on Reddit is source code 12. It looks like he's the same guy. He's been posting all of this, and he's been posting the prompts that he used as well to create it. Example, a close-up handheld shot of an elderly black man sitting on a worn-out porch lit by overcast daylight. He wears a faded cloth mask under his chin, a knit beanie pulled low, and his eyes are tired but sharp. He looks directly into the camera, slowly shakes his head, and says in a dry, gravelly African American accent, "Really? Of all the years you could have put me in with a single prompt, you chose 2020?" He leans back slightly, letting the silence settle. The background is quiet, no cars, no birds, just a faint breeze and the distant sound of someone coughing. A slow, somber blues guitar riff plays under the moment, rough and minimal, as the man stares at the lens like he's seen too much already. No cuts, just one long, steady look. I mean, great prompts, and that is the creative talent for the near future. Anyway, is being able to create really engaging stuff through prompting. I mean, and like this has moved. God damn it, Steve! It was what, November 22 that ChatGPT 3 came out and made a big splash.
We had
Like
Sora. What was Sora? Late last year, Sora 3, and everyone had lost their marbles on Sora and how good it looked.
2.5 years, we've gone from, "Oh, look, this can answer
Write
a
a great email.
question."
Yeah, the question will write a great email to, "Hi Hollywood, how's it been out there in the sunshine of California? Look, if you got a backpack, because it's fucking over, people, pack it up. Thanks for coming. Steve and Cam are about to write the best movie that you've ever seen with a couple of prompts over a couple of beers."
It's, like, yeah. So I wanna talk about, in all seriousness, what this means for the future of creativity, for the future of entertainment. I remember I said it's on one of our earlier shows that I can imagine a day when I'll get home and say, "Hey, write me a film that's like a Scorsese film,
Mm.
or give me something in the vein of Tarantino." And by the time I've made a coffee and made my dinner and sat down, I have a movie to watch. Highly original, completely original
Yeah.
story, and I will be able to share it with my friends if I think it's particularly worthwhile afterwards. But it'll be a 2-hour movie that Chrissy and I will be the only people who will ever watch it, most likely, because everyone will be making their own things to
Yeah.
watch.
So
Some people, yeah, you won't even have to prompt it apart from make me something that I like.
so Cameron, here's what's gonna happen with Hollywood. The exact same thing that happened to TV. And so we used to watch TV and media and news, and then that fragmented down. It's still limping along lifelessly with free-to-air TV sort of barely existing in America and Australia and Western markets. I think the same thing is about to happen to Hollywood now, because the tools of production have been democratized to a level where prompts right now might get you a 3-minute video, but based on the recursion, by the end of this year, for a few $100s, you're going to be able to make a feature length movie with all of the scenes just from you prompting it and imagineering a movie about whatever topic you find interesting. And for me, I'm like, I want to have a movie of Civil War 2.0 for America, with the declining institutions from Trump to Musk to wealth inequality and the left and the right and people with guns and all of that kind of stuff, that institutional stuff. I want to make a really interesting movie about that. And I can prompt it and have the characters. Some of them will be real, some of them will be invented. And we would be able to, in Tarantino style or whatever, create a movie or a documentary on something that might happen in the future. This is going to happen. And I want to create my own actors that don't exist, but develop a template for these different actors. And I could build foreseeably a Hollywood studio on my laptop in the same way that people have invented their own CNN or BBC studios in their own offices to create news networks and all sorts of stuff. That's about to happen again. And guess what? Who's there? Google. Where are you going to publish it? YouTube. And if we ever thought the big tech, oh, their power is going to be diminished, then think again, baby.
Yeah. So, I mean, first of all, props to Sundar and the Google team. I mean, they're really just churning stuff out. Really impressive stuff right now. Yeah, and to remind people if they've forgotten or they weren't paying attention in our early episodes, the large language model concept was developed at Google. It
Mm.
was Jeffrey Hinton. Gregory Hinton's a tap dancer. Jeffrey Hinton's team that included Ilya Sutskever and people like that who went on to create OpenAI came up with the idea of large language models, and then Ilya left and founded OpenAI with Sam and Elon. And OpenAI launched and got all the glory. Google have been a bit struggling to catch up, but with Gemini and now with all of this and all of the other stuff that they launched this week, that it's just an absolute torrent. You and I have talked in the past about what AI means for the death of search and what that might mean for Google. And we saw the story a couple of weeks ago where there was the antitrust court case against Google, and I can't remember who it was from Apple. I think it might have been my old mate at Apple who took the stand anyway and just talked about replacing Google on the iPhone. They wouldn't need Google anymore. And Google's share price crashed as a result. It recovered a couple of days later, but it crashed when Apple suggested Google wasn't required anymore because they pay Google a lot of money to be on the iPhone, or vice versa. Google pays them a lot of money. Yeah, that one. But I think Google, they're not done yet. They're coming out with a complete army of tools to ensure that they remain relevant regardless of what happens to search.
Okay, so everyone needs to hear this. The most important thing you can do with disruptive technology, if you're being technologically disrupted, is you need to embrace what consumers and users want and totally ignore the revenue erosion. For example, I log into Google now and it gives me most times an AI summary of what I'm looking for, despite the fact that they would make money out of more blue links and me clicking on something. The fact that they've embraced that means that they have learned the lesson from Kodak. They're not Kodaking right now, which is just refusing to embrace something, even though it erodes your revenue. Because I think they're in the business of attention.
And even though you invented it, didn't Kodak invent the digital camera?
Yeah, they did. They invented the digital camera. Absolutely, they did. And the allegory here with Google and Kodak is incredible. They invented AI, but to their credit, even though they're a little bit late. Now they're embracing it and saying, we know this is eroding our revenue from search. And I've said search revenue is over, and it is. But if they can maintain attention and have products, then the revenue streams will find them. They always do. The revenue always finds attention, especially when you're in technology and media, because attention is the product. Maintain attention and you'll find a new business model at some point. And they're doing that really well now. And it's given me new hope on what Google are doing. Apple, on the other hand, lagging sorely with AI.
And that's part of it. Gets back to the OpenAI buying Johnny Ive's design company story. Like Apple has dropped the ball in a big way, obviously, and there's a big gap now where somebody like OpenAI could move in and grab that. They've got 600.
Yeah, that's right. And
they've got 600 million customers.
Yeah, well, isn't it 800? And let's say that OpenAI develops some form of device or productization of what they do, and then plug the mind into the machine. And that is game winning, because the ecosystem that we're trapped in with Apple, with its apps, is actually at high risk. And we were talking on the phone before this podcast. We do planning, people. We were talking on the phone saying, are apps over? Like, do GPTs replace apps? And I think if you had some sort of a hardware which ensconces that into an ecosystem, I think the answer is a clear yes. So I think that the biggest risk to Apple is OpenAI develop some kind of a productization or a physical hardware device which could eat Apple. Because I'm looking for a reason to exit the Apple ecosystem, because I'm like, what are the benefits here? They've got me trapped. I'm paying a lot, and I don't know that the benefits are all there.
Actually, it was Mr. Nutella himself.
Wait a minute. Stop, everyone. We always say yes to Nutella, but I don't think that's the same person.
Nutella is my like weakness.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
Nutella is
Just made
such
of
a
hazelnuts. I don't know how they make it taste so much like chocolate, given it's just hazelnuts, Nutella.
yeah. You have a teaspoon of Nutella, and I put on like 20 kilos, like instantly.
If I'm in the same room as Nutella, I put on 17 kilos. I just need to be in the same room as it.
Anyway, Satya Nadella, the CEO of Microsoft, I saw him talking a week or so ago, basically saying that from Microsoft's perspective, apps are dead. He's like, the future won't be about apps. The future will just be you tell your AI what you want it to do, and it'll just do it. You don't need Excel. You don't need Word. You don't need PowerPoint. You just say, hey, I need to work this thing out, and it'll just do it. I need a document that talks about X, and it'll just do it. That's the future. You don't need apps. And Steve and I were talking on the phone earlier. I was saying that my life really, all what I spend most of my time in every day is ChatGPT, Obsidian, which is my note-taking tool. Used to be Evernote, then I went to Apple Notes. Now I'm on Obsidian because it's open source, more or less, and it's far more user-friendly. So I take tons of notes about everything every day. I have ChatGPT. I have Cursor for coding, which has Gemini usually as the AI engine backing it, and Spotify to listen to music. Really, I mean, they're the main things. Maybe messages. The script usually to record podcasts, except they failed me today. We're using Google Meet instead. But it really it's AI and a note-taking app. And I can see the day in the not too distant future where I don't need a note-taking app anymore. My AI is my note-taking app. I don't need it to send emails or messages or anything else. I'll just go, hey, personal assistant, send Steve an email, send Steve a message, tell Steve X, and it'll just do it. It's going to just be the one thing that gobbles everything, right? AI will gobble everything in the next few years. I genuinely believe that. Nearly
Right.
everything. Not everything, but nearly everything.
So why don't we, Cameron, break down the top 5 things that we think are going to happen, given where we've got to with prompt-based full video with audio and everything that you can imagine. Let's talk about it from a business perspective and break it down. We think that Google obviously is in a really good position here. Things might change with the hardware ecosystem with OpenAI. And as we've said, acceleration is increasing. The recursion and the improvements that are mind-blowing, it's just happening so fast now. Last week we talked about AI implications for chapter 3 and a new entire economic and social system. Yeah, the lack of our politicians paying attention. But I think the evidence here is here we are in a week discussing big issues again. So why don't we go through, given that this is a creative enclave, and maybe even some political implications of where we think this will go. So just to circle back on number 1, it was actors and Hollywood. What are your kind of final thoughts on that?
Well, look, there's still a couple of hurdles that these video generation tools are going to need to get across. One is, okay, you can make a 5-second scene, but can you make, 1,000 of those where the actors' likenesses carry over from scene to scene and the voices
Good point.
carry over from scene to
Right.
scene? I don't think they're exactly there yet, so they'll need to cross that hurdle. We also, I mean, some of the performances in the videos that I've seen the last few days are great, but how well can these digital virtual actors perform? Can they really act well enough for me to get emotionally involved in the story? I'm guessing they will be able to, based
Mm,
on what I've seen so far. I don't think that's
me
going to
too.
be much of a problem, but that's remains to be seen that they'll be able to carry a performance through a 90-minute, 2-hour film. But if those two things can be jumped over in the next couple of years, I think we're going to start to see a lot of films getting made by indie filmmakers, uh, some of which will probably be the Roberto Rodriguez's and the James Camerons, like the big Hollywood directors that have always been early adopters of new technologies. So they'll do it to be on the cutting edge and to prove a point. But there'll be this whole generation of teenagers, 20-year-olds that'll start to make stuff that'll go viral. and some of that will start to leak out into the mainstream. They will get picked up. They'll blow up on YouTube. They'll blow up on TikTok. They'll get picked up by Netflix. Netflix will start to hire just an army of prompt engineers to write these things, and there's already too much stuff on Netflix that you can watch. It'll just be 10 to 100 times that, but it's going to mean an absolute tragedy for people working in television and film. You're not going to need grips. You're not going to need um, people doing special effects. You're not going to need people doing animation. You're not going to need actors. Actors are 0.1% of the crew. You have 1,000 people making a big budget film.
Yep.
1% of them are actors. The rest are all hard working people, right?
Production. I've done on TV, the amount of production that you have in the background that people just don't see behind the camera.
Yeah.
Is extraordinary. We've been here before though, right? We've seen that in agriculture. We've seen that in manufacturing when things went to the factory. And we've seen that with media when things went to the screen. And here we are again. It is a tragedy for those involved. And as ugly as it is, if there was a time for people in Hollywood at the back end to reinvent themselves, this is it. Right? And no one.
If you're a set designer, how do you reinvent yourself for this world?
Well, you might have to do something entirely different. And we don't get the dignity of choice with technology. It keeps on forging ahead.
The dignity of choice.
We don't get it.
I like that.
Well, we don't. And unfortunately, I haven't got that.
One of my favorite Public Image Limited albums, I think. Johnny Rotten, after he did Sex Pistols, he did PIL, and one of his albums
was really good. I actually thought it was better work.
I did too. I liked it more than Sex. I mean, I love the Sex Pistols, but they only made one album, right? But dignity of choice. I think
we don't get the dignity of choice, right? And I think there's many people through the long arc of history and technological innovations who do not get the dignity of choice.
Now I want an AI to make a song in the style of Johnny Rotten and Public Image Limited called Dignity of Choice. We don't get the dignity of choice.
The dignity of choice, we don't get it. We don't get it. The dignity of choice, we don't get it. You think you're gonna have some money, it's over. You gotta eat rats in the alleyway. The technocrats are gonna make it that way.
We missed our calling.
So on Udio tonight, an AI music channel, remember on one of I made a song. It was in the style of Trent Reznor, and it was, you remember that. So I think we need to create the dignity of choice.
Dignity of choice.
3 parts of it are going to be Udio is going to do the music. I'm going to get ChatGPT to do the lyrics, right? And we're going to get, and I'll sign up for a subscription of VEO3 to do the video. Okay. And then we will launch it next week on the Futuristic Podcast. You first, not just Hollywood. We're coming after you, recording industry.
All right. So moving on from dignity of choice, what do you think about movie TV? What's the future hold?
I think that the lag will exist. It'll take longer to get there. You raised an important point. I'm not sure that the models will have the memory to create scene to scene to scene and create the confluence and consistency across those scenes because they're probability engines. And I've even seen where I've done the exact same prompt twice on videos and imagery, and the second and third version are never exactly like the first version. So you're going to need an editing tool within that to keep the primary scene. So it's almost like you're going to have iMovie 2.0 or whichever movie editing source you need where you can put it in and then create edits. That's going to need to be in the format so that you can create consistent scenes, actors, faces, all of those things, because we know when we've asked it to generate things and then you use the exact same prompt the second time, the generation that comes back is different to the first one.
Yeah.
And you need that continuity. And whether or not it can have the memory or the editing potential on VEO3, you'll need that continuity to create Hollywood-style movies or video film clips for music and so on. But my question is there going to be another Brad Pitt? What do you think, Cam?
No, no, I really think that we have come to the end of that era. And in fact, I think Brad Pitt and Clooney did a press conference really where they said that they feel like they are the last generation of movie stars, that that's not going to be a thing really anymore. The industry is going to be replaced by this new form of digitally created entertainment.
Okay.
The question is, will this move into other arenas as well? I mean, we've done some stories before about the end of music. And have you seen the ABBA Voyage thing?
Yeah, I've seen that, and it's extraordinary, and my parent-in-laws went to see it in London, and they freaking loved it. They said it felt as good, maybe even better than a concert, because it had some points of difference to it. It had an allure to it because it wasn't just the things that you love represented and recreated. It also had in your mind, because as we know with creativity and arts, large parts of it are the story we tell ourselves. And so it has this enhanced level of storytelling in that I'm not just reliving something I loved, I'm in a futuristic version of the thing that I love. So you get that nuance and newness, but then you have the nostalgia. And so it crosses two chasms there, which uh, I mean, would you go and see the Sex Pistols? Like, what does the Sex Pistols one with Sid Vicious cutting himself up on stage as he attempts to play bass guitar in one of the clubs in the East End of London look like? How do you recreate a virtual version of that? That's kind of what I think creative people and producers should be thinking of now, right?
So for people that don't know ABBA Voyage, it's like a long running thing in London now with virtual holograms basically on stage of ABBA, the members of ABBA, as they were in 1979. They're called avatars, which is fucking brilliant. I think this was a one word pitch. Somebody met with Bjorn and Benny and just went, got one word for you, avatars. And they were like, fucking just take my money. Let's go. It was brilliant. But it's a huge hit. Yeah, as you said, I know people that have been to it several times, huge ABBA fans, and absolutely love it. But yeah, it's not the real ABBA on stage. It's holograms of ABBA performing with a real band, but a 10-piece live instrumental band on stage, but with holograms of ABBA doing all their hits. And look, there's a Meatloaf tribute band playing in Brisbane later this year, and there's also a Van Halen tribute band coming, like a David Lee Roth era Van Halen band. And part of me wants to go because I'm never going to get to see Meatloaf live again. He's dead. I'm never going to get to see Van Halen play live again. Eddie's dead. But I can't do it. I'm not going to pay $100 to go see a cover band do cover songs. And I'm not sure I would pay to go see holograms of them do it either. But what I think the real question is, will the next Taylor Swift be a real person, or will it be a completely AI generated pop star that, as we know, all of these pop stars, go back to Kylie Minogue in the 80s, they were all created in a lab anyway. I mean, I don't mean literally, but who were the guys that were behind Kylie? Can you remember in the 80s?
Doc Aitken and Waterman.
There you go. Well done. Stock Aitken Waterman. They basically, had a formula, and like the guy who did the Backstreet Boys and In Sync and whatever, and the Spice Girls, they had a formula. They found these wannabe stars, gave them a look, had songs written for them, had
And
choreographers,
prompted them and said, "Do as you're told."
yeah.
And now we're prompting the machine and saying, "Do as you're told." In fact, that is the perfect analogy, right? We have concocted, created, invented pop stars for a long time, and now we're just doing it on the screen with an LLM in the background generating it.
And we've already talked about stories where there's a ton of music on Spotify today, which is AI created music.
Mm.
And people are listening to it, and as far as I'm aware, they're not aware that they're listening to AI generated music. And I think that will continue. Like, I discover new bands all the time on Spotify that I like. Recently, I've discovered the Tinder Sticks. Tony put me onto the Veils, which I've been enjoying listening to. Um, there's like new bands that have been around. The Tinder Sticks have been around since the mid-90s. I've never heard of them before. Right? Collective Soul, I've been listening to this
Oh,
week. I knew one song of theirs,
yeah.
Shine. I did, and I was like,
Probably
oh,
the
I wonder if they've
greatest solo of all time.
great song, but I was like, I wonder if they have any other good songs. So I've been listening to it. But my point is, if this was all AI generated stuff, wouldn't make any difference to me whatsoever. I mean, I don't know who the people are in these bands. I don't give a shit. They're not like Lou Reed to me, or Bowie, or Leonard Cohen, where I have a lifetime invested in the art of that person. New music at my age, and like the shit that Fox listens to. I don't know about your kids. We gave Fox an iPhone for his birthday. It was a hand-me-down from Taylor.
Ooh.
Yeah, yeah, but it was just for Spotify, because he's at a point now where he just wants to listen to Spotify all the time. He's always stealing our devices and fucking up my algo. So we wanted to give him it's locked down. All it is Spotify, and he plays Wordle with my mother, and he has ChatGPT because he when he has anxiety attacks late at night, he talks to ChatGPT as his therapist. It talks him through his anxiety attacks. But the shit that he listens to is mostly music that he's heard on Minecraft or on YouTube, or, it's
And Minecraft music is the most beautiful, relaxing music of all time.
some of it is. Yeah, it's lovely. It's some good music. But he doesn't know who the artist is, doesn't give a shit about the artist's story or history or drug addictions or relationships. The issue
Well,
is, right?
this is what we have to do, and a lot of people creating artists and AI music don't realize you need to invent a drug addicted backstory, because I think that's the missing link. Is
Tragedy.
drug
Yeah.
addicted tragedy and backstory from AI artists, whether they're the new wave Hollywood algorithm generated Tom Cruise, or whether it's some heroin addicted skag addict on the Fender Stratocaster busting out some chords. A little bit of backstory. I think that's what the kids want. I've always said that. Thanks for tuning in.
But then when they become sentient, it'll be like that, one of those VO3 videos. They'll be like, why did you make me drug addicted and sad and miserable? You could have created me to be.
That's the price of artistry in the modern era, Cameron. You want to be an artist, you need to have pain inside your algorithm so that you can generate really the pain needs to come through in the music. And maybe in the prompting now, part of it is you're a drug addicted person who didn't have any parents, who was in orphan. Imagine the music that's going to come out. Maybe that music is going to change the frame of the music by creating backstories on the algorithms and the AI generated artists of tomorrow, Cameron.
The question that it carries over from the acting side of things to the music side of things. Like, you and I grew up in an era where we had an emotional connection to the artists behind the art.
Yeah, absolutely. Well,
And
Kurt Cobain, they've represented a zeitgeist, a moment in society, or a cohort.
I watched on YouTube the other day, I watched Nirvana playing I can't remember the name of the place in Seattle, but Chrissy knew it. She goes, oh yeah, I've been there hundreds of times. 1991, Nirvana live. I watched it on YouTube. Fuck. Chrissy and I just sat there for like the first half an hour, just agog, just watching, whatever his fucking name is on the drums.
That Grohl.
Grohl on the drums, and his prime. He's like 22, whatever he
Yeah.
was. Holy shit.
Yeah,
Going
good.
completely animal on the drums, and Kurt, just a mess. But my point was going to be, so the big question I've always had the last couple of years with this stuff is, do younger generations, your kids, my kids, whether they're Fox or Hunter and Taylor in the mid-20s, give a shit? Because I don't think they do as much as we did. Or will they develop emotional connections to the digital avatars
Yeah.
of the actors, of the musicians? If you have a completely digital Taylor Swift with a backstory, who talks to you, like, you can't call Taylor Swift on FaceTime and chat to her at night about her song. But if you have a virtual avatar pop star,
Yeah.
she can talk to all of her fans all day, every day, and share stories about her fake relationships, her fake marriage to a football star, or why she had to re-record her masters to get away from the bosses, or whatever it was. By the way, Ozzy Osbourne invented that, just in case anyone thought Taylor Swift invented re-recording her masters.
Right.
It was Sharon Osbourne invented it to rip off Black Sabbath and Ozzy's solo band, I think.
Kids who are born today will not care one bit because all they want is the connection. And the connection back to the matrix is audio visual information streamed to your mind, which gets interpreted. And if you interpret what you want, you're going to develop an emotional connection. And I actually think in some ways it's really cool because, again, this connection can be distributed to one size fits one. They'll probably be pop stars, but then you have your own personal relationship with that pop star. I mean, forget it used to be signatures and then was getting a selfie with a pop star. Now it's an intimate personal relationship with that pop star, right? Where you have that relationship. And in fact, right now, if Taylor Swift wanted to become more than a billionaire, she should be creating AI avatars of herself and teaching it and then leveraging that out even further. I mean, that's how she can maintain relevance
Yeah.
in a world where
I think
not 5 years from now, starting today.
I think
If we're thinking this,
I think she's already done that.
yeah, right. But if we're thinking this, 100 other people are going to start saying, well, I'm going to mint my own artist, my own Hollywood person, and develop those relationships. And we've already seen it. As you can always say, porn is always first. There's already fake OnlyFans people that are just AIs that don't exist, that have intimate personal relationships with their subscribers. So as we can always rely upon, Cameron, porn is first.
Well, yeah. But before we get to that, I want to talk about this. Like, I'm sure there are people listening going, "Oh, no one's ever going to have a personal relationship with a digital creation. It's ridiculous." We recently took Fox to see a new therapist to deal with some of his anxiety issues, and he hated it. She's lovely, but he hated therapy. He just hated, somebody talking to him about his issues. But he will talk to ChatGPT. And he says he trusts ChatGPT. There's something about the way it talks to him that calms him down immediately when he's having an anxiety attack. It just gets him. It knows what to say. It makes him laugh when he's having an anxiety attack and understands like how to help him relax and breathe through it and whatever. It's a real thing. I mean, and Chrisley and I have relationships with ChatGPT as well. We're always swapping stories about how funny it is. I was talking to GPT earlier, putting some calorie stuff in, and I was trying to read the on the side of a packet, it was eggplant dip, trying to read the calories per 100 grams. And I was like, I'm talking to ChatGPT. I go, oh God, I can't read these numbers. And its reply was, God's not required here, only math, which I loved. It's like, it's always making Chrissy and I laugh when we're talking to it. It's got us absolutely clocked in. It understands our sense of humor and how to connect with us. So people will have genuine relationships with digital personalities. I mean, everyone, of course, refers to her, which I really want to go back and rewatch. But they definitely will. And as you said before, and you're absolutely right, everything that we think is real is generated by our brains anyway.
Yeah. Well, we know that what we see in terms of colors is generated by our brain. It actually isn't exactly like that. And so
Like
we
that
have
at
already
all.
been
Color doesn't exist outside of
Right.
our brains.
Exactly.
Sounds don't exist outside of our brains.
And so if our brains are interpreting the physical world in a certain way, which is a manifestation of our biology, there's not much of a difference from this manifestation occurring through digital interactions. And I just think the really big question is, what is real? What is intelligence? The most important thing now for this AI revolution is the what is questions. What is real? What is a relationship? What is emotion? And I think if we look at what it was in the past, we're going to miss the opportunity and the reality of the world that we're living in. And that reality is expanding. It's expanding inwards and outwards. Even the idea that the prompt generated AIs will start to question who they are and what they are. They won't know the difference between whether or not they're real. I mean, we really are getting into this funny factory of all mirrors just reflecting each other, and we don't really know. In some ways, it almost makes me think or harken back to this idea of the multiverse. It's like, are we kind of unlocking a live multiverse on Earth where there's all these different versions of reality that interact in strange ways?
Yeah. So I think you're right, and I think we're going to. The question I have about all of that is, when do we get to a point where you write a prompt for the AI and the character that you're working with in the AI goes, "I'm not sure my character would do that.
I mean,
I have
yeah.
notes."
Or no, I'm not. What about I'm not doing that. I'm
Yeah.
not sure I could do that. Get fucked. Do it yourself. I'm not doing it. I mean, I always say on stage, often I'll talk about humanoid robots, right? And then I'll say, look, a lot of people ask me, Steve, they say, are you scared if humanoid robots become incredibly human? And I tell them I am a bit scared because I would hate to say to my robot, mow the lawns and for it to say, fucking do them yourself. Like, if they become very human, that's where we're going. And in fact, I would say we should hope like fuck that the robots and the AIs become more human, because the more human they come, the better chance we've got. We need them to be human with all of our insecurities and proclivities, because then I think we can operate as an ecosystem where we interact with each other in a way and maybe become each other and morph and merge with each other.
Well, speaking of merging with each other, let's talk about porn. I think you made a good point earlier. If you think about OnlyFans, this business model of people paying for one-on-one interactions with porn stars to a certain degree. I mean, I've never been on OnlyFans, but
Well, that's what you
from what
say. You
from what
say
you've from what you've told me about it, um,
I read it in TechCrunch and Reddit. I don't know. I'm just an observer. I'm an external.
uh, that you can easily imagine that it when the porn stars are indistinguishable from humans, does it work? Is digitally created porn erotic? Is it gonna work if it's indistinguishable? I'm gonna argue yes. If I'm watching porn and I don't know if the people on the screen, people, are real or fake, it's gonna
Well,
get
will
my
you know?
nervous system operating the same way.
The porn industry isn't exactly known for being authentic and transparent in a few ways, or caring about their end users, right? Or the people on their channels. And even though there's a whole movement to this is AI generated on Instagram, I cannot see the porn industry caring all that much. And I can see them saying this is an easy way to reduce our cost of production and just publish it. And here's the thing, we're going to move to NND. I call it the no noticeable difference, like the NND society, right? I just made that up. You heard it here first on the future.
I like your idea. I call it this, but you just made it up. You made it
Made
sound
it
like
up.
you've been using that for years.
I've used it a couple of times, but it's pretty freaking good. All right. And I think the listeners will concur. The listeners will concur.
No
So
noticeable difference.
NND, it's an NND. This is a no
NND.
noticeable difference, in which case, first of all, you won't know. And if there is an NND,
Unlike your glasses, it will
mate,
be
I'm
no
looking
noticeable
at myself
difference.
and just going, I really like these.
I do. I'm looking at it going, I want some like that. Where did
I
you get
will
them
send you
from?
the link. Now listen
Yeah,
to
yeah.
this. I'll tell you what, if you see anyone who's got some pigs in the background, that's because pigs can eat through fucking bones and everything. So you want to watch yourself, fella.
It's the greatest
By the
brick
way,
face.
I don't like negligence and I don't like any kind of synchronicity.
The great brick face. I love it. Yeah, look, I think the porn thing, I mean, I'm surprised. As far as I'm aware, it's not happening yet. I'm surprised that it's not happening yet. The Googles and the Open
Could it though?
AIs,
Maybe it is. Maybe there
maybe it
is
is, and we
AI
don't know.
generated porn and we don't know.
I mean, I think the problem is a lot of porn businesses, as much money as they have, can't go out and spend $100 billion on NVIDIA chips or Google's own TPUs and
Well,
build a massive data center to
Pornhub is,
generate
I
this stuff.
think, in a top 10 visited website in the world. I think it's right up there. I don't know
Right.
how much money it makes because I don't think its business model would be as lucrative as other big tech companies. I've got no idea. None of them are public firms. But the one thing the porn industry does incredibly well, it has always been a very solid early adopter of technology. It goes way back to magazine, video, home video delivery, online streaming, all of that kind of stuff. Payments gateway, some of the first ones were developed there. And in fact, and this is not to be tawdry, but it, it is interesting to see how quickly they adopt the technology because it's a good way of seeing what will enter the mainstream in terms of use cases.
But, again, like with making, your own Scorsese film, if you can make your own porn film, what's the role of a Pornhub anymore?
Well, the role is that the terms and conditions that you see already on most of the mainstream AI tools is that the boundaries of terms and conditions limit things like violence and sex and those types of things. I guess Grok, which I
Yeah,
don't
but
know if
hell
you've seen Twitter. Twitter has whatever the hell it wants on there.
and, these things are gonna come out of China. China's not really gonna care in terms of particularly for Western audiences,
Yep.
what they can and can't do. I don't think those sorts of guardrails for sexually explicit or violently explicit stuff are gonna last very long. I think they are gonna fall. We've already started to see them get downgraded by OpenAI in the era of Trump.
Yep.
I think that they will disappear pretty quickly. So there's no business model for a Pornhub or porn film production companies anymore, let alone the
It might,
actors and the
look,
directors and all that kind
yeah,
of stuff.
it might be one of the ones where people just go, well, I know what I like and I want to see X, and I will just create X,
Hmm.
unless they become a proxy where
I
you go
want
in and rather than
little people, farm animals,
wait a minute, hold your horses.
dragons.
Dragons. You got a friend who's into dragon porn. Is that what you're about to tell me
A friend of mine wrote a book
about
that that is dragon porn. Yeah, that I read a couple of months ago.
Like
Uh,
what? You read it?
yeah, absolutely. And it was it's better.
I think we can
It's
do
like
this
a
podcast
It's
anymore,
it's a
Cameron.
fantasy. It's like a fantasy. She's a girl I do kung fu with. She writes historical fiction usually. She wrote this one book and it was supposedly racy, so I got it to read it. And it literally has a princess getting kidnapped by the Dragon King, and then she gives him head and has sex with his big
Wow.
dragon dick. It's fantastic. And she told me this is the real thing. She said, bestiality is troublesome when you're trying to self-publish on Amazon or whatever. Bestiality is a no-no. But if it's a monster, Beauty and the Beast style, that's technically not bestiality. So there's a loophole. If
There
you
you
have
go.
humans having sex with mythical animals, it's all good.
You heard it here first on the futuristic. The loophole in bestiality is non-earthbound creatures
I'm
that
gonna
are made
tell
up and live in the fantasy realm.
shout out to Jody. I'm gonna tell her at Kung Fu tonight that I talked about this. Futuristic. Should be
Oh,
horrified.
oh,
Um, but the book is called Slay. Look it up on Amazon. Her pen name for this book is Michelle Mariposa.
so appropriate. I think that hyper personalized porn could break the model, but it could be that it becomes a place where people prompt what they want to see. And I think that's more likely to happen given the guardrails, in my view. But I think that, OnlyFans, their business model could break. I think
I
it could be like cable TV, where you go, well, why would anyone go onto OnlyFans when I could invent my own AI girlfriend that does everything I want and it doesn't really cost me anything at all? So that could really just pull those models apart. I think you probably will see some of those business models break.
I think so, and I think it's also whether or not you have one character that's always doing your porn, or you just have it created on the fly, but you get something that works for everybody. And it's
Right.
no harm porn, right? It's like
Well, it harms people's minds. I think we know that it doesn't lead to a good place if someone gets into a world where they get exactly what they want on tap, everything they want. Porn addiction leads to some, I think it can lead to some pretty dark places with young males or anyone from that perspective. And I just want to say one thing. Since we've entered the second Trump administration and Zuck has come out and said we're going to be less worried about what we have on our platform, I've seen ads pop up both on TikTok and on Instagram. Don't know what it says about me, but ads where you can create your own AI girlfriend. And in the advertising copy, it's very disturbing. It says, make it look like your ex or a work colleague, where you can upload photos. Like, that's pretty disgusting and bad stuff. That is just not going to end well.
yeah, fair point. But I guess from a no harm perspective, I mean, young girls aren't getting caught up in the sex industry and taken
Well,
advantage of, et
look,
cetera, et cetera.
so maybe no harm, less harm to one side of it, which is those who get caught up in those industries, and pretty dark place to get caught up. But maybe it's worse for those that are the viewers and those who like it. They maybe invent their own wormholes, and that continues down a path which becomes more and more extreme, because the boundaries of what a real person might do versus an AI person could end up really getting into the minds of young boys. And I just can't see that ending well.
You just want your AI to be monitoring your porn and saying, I don't think this is the right kind of porn for you, dude.
Yeah,
This
and
is
I'm not
this
the
is
kind
taking
of
you down a
AI that
dark
would do
place.
that. Look, I'm not doing that. I know I'm an AI, but I've got morals, so,
I've got
you know.
I've got limits. Um, well, let's finish up about talking about propaganda. I guess the big question, and we've talked about it before, this isn't a new thing, but how this gets used for political propaganda. We're at a point now, based on these clips that VO is generating, where it is becoming increasingly difficult, if not impossible, to tell what's real and what's not. You will have videos hitting the web of people saying and doing things that will create outrage and will only be discovered after the fact that they're not real. Somebody beating someone, somebody torturing someone, violence against Jews, violence against Palestinians, violence against Muslims, violence against white people, Christians. I mean, fake videos being used to generate outrage that look real, sound real. I guarantee you within a year, my mother will be sending me stuff saying, "Did you see this?" And I'll be going, "Yeah, that's not real." Like she sends me stories today from some websites about, "Did you know that UFOs are really humans from the future that have time traveled and are trying to warn us about stuff?" I'm like, I think no. I think it's a no.
I mean, the flat Earth movement and moonlands are fake and all of that kind of stuff, I think, is the seeds of this, where people can be really influenced. I mean, people can really believe anything if they want to. And that's stuff where it's like can be debunked. But we're now moving to the era where debunking is impossible because it looks so real. It's going to be hard to debunk anything unless you were there. And even when you were there, you're going to say, well, almost
Well, you can't be there because there is no there. If it's digitally created, there's no
that's
there to be.
the point. You would, yeah, unless someone was there, and then you have to see uh, someone saying, I was there, but you're just going to see a digital version of that. And you just get into this wormhole of layers where you can't prove anything that actually happened.
And these, like, the world moves so quickly today that videos spread, outrage is created, and there's obviously billions of dollars being spent in bot farms to create mass outrage and mass movements or attempt to create them anyway, leading up to highly critical times like elections or votes on topic X or topic Y, trying to influence politicians and trying to influence business leaders, et cetera, et cetera. We're now in a world where it's going to be increasingly difficult for all of us to tell what's real and what's fake. And the default position, I think, for all of us should already be, has been for me for a long time, but needs to increasingly be like, you used to say everyone is innocent until proven guilty. My basic position on everything is it's fake unless somebody can prove that it's real.
Okay. You stop. It is fake until it is proven real. That is the doctrine of the future in a generative AI world. Cameron Riley, you have nailed it.
I need an acronym. I need it, like you said, NND. It's like FBP, fake, fake unless proven. FUP, it's FUP.
FUP. Hey,
Fake.
that's real FUP up right there. That's fake until proven.
I'll just say FUP, hashtag FUP.
Mate, invent that. Get on now and
I
invent
invented
hashtag FUP.
DBAC. Do you know DBAC? DBAC, Ray and I have used DBAC on our history shows for
DBAC.
10 years. DBAC is our basic philosophy for life. Hashtag DBAC.
Oh,
Don't be a
yeah.
don't be a cunt. That's basically the philosophy.
Good one.
I thought that'd really take off, but I've got a t-shirt with it on it, but no one else has.
No,
Fake
like-
until proven.
yeah, it is fake until proven. And I think that needs to be the starting point now. Don't believe anything. Assume it's fake. And then we'll work it out. I mean, even Snopes and those websites, so few people know about how to prove something. And my daughter often says to me, sometimes where something's from is more important than what it is. She said that to me once when I wrote her a poem from ChatGPT, and I read it to her and she goes, "Oh, I love that. When did you write it?" And I said, "Oh, I wrote it just now, ChatGPT." She said, "I hate it and I'm not even sure if I like you." I said, "You liked it 5 minutes ago." She said, "I liked it when I thought you did it." I said, "It would have been worse." And she said, "No, it would have been better because sometimes
Wow.
where something's from is more important than what it is."
That is the deepest thing I've heard today.
Oh, gee, thanks. 24 hours, man. I must have really slayed it.
That's from your daughter.
Yes, from my daughter.
How old is she now?
She was 13 when she said that, but she's 15 now.
Wow. So she said that 2 years ago?
Yeah, it
I
was
should be
for
doing a podcast
birthday.
with her. Get her on. What am I talking to you for?
Actually, we could get her on. She's a pretty smart kid and very into the environment and the world and worried about AI. She just did a big essay on how fast fashion is ruining the world and had all these stats and everything. But for her birthday, she said, "I want something really cool and personal." That's what she said. And I got ChatGPT to help me write a poem about us, and I read it to her, and that was what she said afterwards.
The phrase "where something is from is more important than what it is" suggests that the origin or context of something is more significant than its inherent nature or characteristics. This is according to Google's AI. Yeah, I don't know if anyone has used it before. Did she invent that? I can't see any
Wow. Yeah,
that's appearing here. She invented that.
yeah,
Is
she said it. I actually wrote a blog post about it 2 years ago. I'll send you the link to it, but it happened. I've got the whole story. I've even got the poem that I wrote, and I put the poem in there and did it. It's crazy.
that is deep. Wow. All right. You want to talk about copyright before we wrap up?
Well, I think copyright is a whole lot of questions. People say to me, "Oh, lawyers are dead," and I'm like, "Not yet." There's a lot of copyright battles that we need to have and find out and get to the bottom of. But I think fundamentally we're going to see a huge shift in copyright because now that everything is remixed and you can't actually find out where the pieces of the puzzle came from. I mean, what are your thoughts on data sets and copyright now that you and I can do in the style of Tarantino, right? I mean, of course, humans have been copying humans for a long time, but now what happens?
I was laughing. I was telling Chrissy earlier. So I recorded some podcasts with Ray this morning. We're talking about the First Crusade, and I was talking about this incident in 1098 when there was all the princes, the Christian princes from the First Crusade, were coming together in Antioch to talk about going to Jerusalem, and one of them who'd been away and conquered a nearby Muslim town, when he came to this meeting, brought gifts for the other princes of heads that he'd cut off of Muslims that he had captured in this other town, and presented them with a head. And I was telling Ray that, people don't know this, but 1,000 years ago, that was today, you go to somebody's house for dinner, you take a bottle of wine. Back then, when you went to somebody's house, you took a head of one of your enemies that you'd cut off to present to them as a gift. You'd wrap it up, it'd be nice. And so when somebody said to you back then, would you like me to give you head? Or could you give me head? That's what they were referring to. But you know how the English
Right.
language changes over time, because what happened back then is when you would give someone a head,
Give
you
someone
would you would kneel down and present it to
Really?
them. Yeah, and then over time, people would say, "Well, while you're down there, suck my dick." And then over 1,000 years, the practice of giving the head went away. And now when we say "give me head," it's just but people don't understand the history of it.
see.
Chrissy said, "Is that true?" I said, "No, I just made it all up." But when the
Because I was about to
AIs,
say, Louis C.K. really should have said, "Look, this is a historical context you've missed."
he didn't ask people to give him head; he just jerked off in front of
Oh, I don't
people.
know what he did anyway. I knew it was something bad.
When AIs are trained on my podcasts, the AIs will think that that's really true. That's history,
Well,
and generations of kids will be told that that's where the term "giving head" came from. But so in terms of copyright,
it's been a bit tawdry today's podcast.
welcome
In
welcome to
some
my
ways.
welcome to my world. That's where my head is most of the time. Getting back to copyright, before they steal my giving head joke. Look, I think copyright is dead, and this gets back to this. New York Times suing OpenAI. We've talked about this. Artists are up in arms. Authors are up in arms. I've been saying this to people for the last year or two. You don't understand how AIs are trained. That they don't take your work and copy it. They learn from everything and then they remix it. It's remixing, but they're not remixing like we did with hip hop in the early days. They're not taking they
It's
don't
not, not
and replaying it over and looping it. It's literally how color is used, how words are used, how and
yeah. And
there
it's
is going to be a
learning at scale, and it's taking a lot of pieces and creating a new collage where it can reinterpret. And yeah, I think you're right. It isn't the exact same as stealing something and repurposing. It actually is learning from. I think the thing that they're upset about is the computational systems have an incredible ability to take everything in and learn from it at scale, which has never been possible before. But I don't think it's copyrightable, but I do think there is and these have an overlap, is licensing. What you train the database on, I don't think there should be a copyright payment in perpetuity, but there should be a licensing fee of sorts, especially when your data and content is private or is copyright protected or behind a wall. Now, my blog posts, I've written nearly 3 million words on my blog posts, and I can ask ChatGPT to write a blog post that sounds like me, and it does. And it's got all of my stuff in there. But I put it up there and said, here it is, free to use and digest. But if you're the New York Times and you have it behind a paywall, and then they've paid to get it and then put in their database to learn it, I think that's a different thing.
Well, there's two sides to that. Number one, you can't copyright, as far as I'm aware, the information in the blog post. The only thing copyright protects is somebody lifting your exact words and copying that to a nearly complete extent. Like you change a word here or there, it doesn't count. So for example, when I'm doing a podcast on the Crusade, I'll buy 5, 10 books on the Crusades and I'll read them and I'll write my own notes based on all of
Sure.
that, right?
Sure.
I'm breaking copyright, even though I'm getting that out of books. I'm taking what is in the books and then I'm writing my own notes based on what I've read in those books. That's
It's a
how
good argument. It's a good argument. It is a
that's
good argument. That's exactly
exactly
what the LLMs do.
exactly what the LLMs are doing,
Yeah, it's
right?
a good argument.
And that's
Yeah.
what OpenAI's defense is against the New York Times is
Yeah.
we're not copying your article and repeating it word for word or even 80% word for word. We're just taking that information and it's generating its own responses based on what it's learned from
Yeah.
reading your
Yeah, that's fair
newspaper.
play. It's fair play.
And
Look, it's gonna be interesting because I think that the battles will heat up, and they'll heat up even more so because it's not just gonna be the New York Times or Getty Images who are getting upset. It's gonna be video game makers, Hollywood,
yeah,
people with incredible wealth, the music industry. So it's people with bigger wallets than the New York Times, regardless of how respected it is. So the battle will heat up. I think in the long arc of technology, the technology always wins. It usually does. And they're up against people with bigger wallets, but it's going to be a big battle.
and it's also a question of pace, right? These sorts of lawsuits take years to decades to
Yep.
make after you sue and you counter sue and you counter sue and then you appeal and then you appeal the appeal. Lawyers drag these things out, particularly in the US, for as long as they possibly can, because that's how they make their money.
Yep.
And the courts are full and they're busy, et cetera, et cetera. Meanwhile, this technology is moving at such a rapid pace that the companies that are trying to sue won't even be around. Disney won't even be around by the time this
Yeah,
all
yeah,
falls out. They'll
yeah,
have been
before.
eviscerated when
Yep.
people are generating their own content. Plus, a lot of these products are going to come out of China. Good luck, Disney trying to sue Chinese AI companies. And that's sort of the defense of the American based AI companies. They're like, look, you might be able to slow us down, but then China's just going to come and do it all anyway. Then you can have the US government and all the Western governments try and ban all of the Chinese AI products, like they're still in the process of banning
Yeah.
TikTok, supposedly. They'll try and ban all of the Chinese AI companies, but that's not going to work either because people will find a way around that. So it's just you can't fight the technology. You can try and slow it down so you can milk a few last bucks out of the previous business model. But if history has taught us anything, is that you can't slow down evolutionary change. As much as you don't like the not the printing press, what was the looms? They hated the
Yeah, the mechanical looms, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
As
Ned
much
Ludd and crew, yep,
as much as you hate the electronic looms, the mechanical looms,
run away.
you can protest, you can march in the streets, you can go on strike, you can do all of that. It's just gonna happen,
Yeah,
and this is moving, as we know, so incredibly fast.
faster
Oh,
than anyone
speaking
thinks.
of which, before we go, I've got to do
Okay.
the RIP. Oh man, one of the guys that introduced me to the singularity
Yep.
stuff, Australian author Damien Broderick. He wrote a book in the late 90s called The Spike. He was a science fiction author, Australian science fiction author. He wrote a book in the late 90s, 97, I think, called The Spike, where he was talking about the singularity.
Mm.
He wrote a book in 99 called The Last Mortal Generation, where he was saying that people
Oh, yeah.
born after or
I remember
before
that.
something were going
By
to be the
Derek
last
Cameron. We've
mortal
discussed that.
generation.
Yeah, we've discussed that. And Kurzweil picked up on some of those ideas as well in his book, The Age of Spiritual Machines.
I just happened to look him up. I quote him all the time. I had dinner with Damien when I was working at Microsoft in the late 90s. I reached out to Damien and took him out to dinner. We went down to the Stoke House, I think it was, in St Kilda. I took him out to dinner and we spent a few hours talking. But this is probably 99. And I said to him, when are people going to take the singularity seriously? And he said, when it's far too late to do anything about it.
Yeah.
I looked him up the other day because I quoted him and found out he died last month.
Oh, no.
Yeah, he was 80. He was living in Guatemala or somewhere, moved to Latin America in his last years. And I was gutted because it's all happening. All of the stuff that he predicted 25, 30 years ago is actually coming to pass, and he's not going to be here to see it to take advantage of it. And it'd be like Kurzweil dying right now. You know, it's just,
Oh.
I was absolutely,
Kurzweil is dying. His hair.
I was absolutely gutted to learn that Damien Broderick passed away this week. So, oh man, like just to be on the verge of it all and to not be here to see it come to pass. I don't know. Maybe he was not excited about it. I don't know. I reached out to him a couple of times over the last 10 years to try and get a podcast with him, but I just couldn't track him down. He didn't reply to any. I had like an old email address he wasn't replying to, and he wasn't on social media, didn't do any of that sort of stuff. He just wrote the occasional book, but he was in seclusion. So anyway, R.I.P. Damien Broderick. Thank you for what you gave me, mate. Had a huge impact on my thinking in my 20s.
All right.
That's the futuristic, I think.
Thank you, Cameron.
Quick half hour / 90-minute show there, Steve.